but the culture is built when the team is on the same page. So as long as your team is growing together, getting better together, thinks the same way, performs the same way, everybody supports each other, you know each other's roles, that's where the culture is created. And that, I believe, is the foundation of building a really successful office. Whatever you define as success, whether it's seeing 1,000 people a week or whether it's seeing 100 people a week, it doesn't matter. It's your way of expressing who you are, what you truly stand for, and how you deliver chiropractic. I wanted to make July the month of team training. And I really feel that that's based on the coaching calls, the one-on-one coaching calls that I've had. Team training is a place where many offices are lacking because we don't put the time and effort into really inspiring and getting our team better, helping our team, giving our team the opportunity to become better. And that's really what creates the culture in the office. And I think when you start to understand really what a culture is and you start to build a culture in your office, that attracts people into your culture. People want to be part of a culture. And I think when they feel it, because really it's a feeling, it's an emotional connection, it's a feeling. People feel it, what you stand for, but the culture is built when the team is on the same page. So as long as your team is growing together, getting better together, thinks the same way, performs the same way, everybody supports each other, you know each other's roles, that's where the culture is created. And that, I believe, is the foundation of building a really successful office. Whatever you define as success, whether it's seeing 1,000 people a week or whether it's seeing 100 people a week, it doesn't matter. It's your way of expressing who you are, what you truly stand for, and how you deliver chiropractic. So we're going to talk today about how to build a team meeting that inspires your team with the foundation, with the bottom line of this is why and this is how we create this culture. Okay. The topic of this call really is running a weekly team meeting that builds an inspired, high performing chiropractic practice. And this is something, and again, that I really want to help you guys understand is that we graduate from chiropractic school with very little skills in running a business. So I believe to run a good, profitable, successful business that really does make an impact in your community. And that's really our ultimate goal is really to make an impact in the lives of people in your community. You have to build a good team and you have to build a team that supports the vision of what you're trying to build or the direction you're trying to go. So it takes the onus off you because I find so many chiropractors, and I just had this conversation with one of our clients and a prospective client last week who is burned out, and I just mentioned this on our other coaching call, burned out, tired, has been in practice for almost 10 years, struggling, just dismayed at the whole profession because they're seeing 45 people a week. They don't know how they could see more people without being quote unquote unethical. They're so caught in this educated mind and this educated mind that has been beat down by the chiropractic education system in our country, and it breaks my heart. So one of the things that I want to do is help you to really understand how to inspire the team and how to get them to the level where they really grow the practice. They are the ones that are pushing things forward, taking the onus off you. But the point is you have to be the leader of that. So bottom line is the quality of your practice is determined by the quality of your team conversations. And most chiropractors spend years learning how to adjust the spine, interpret imaging, communicate care plans, and improve clinical outcomes, but very few ever learn how to lead the team. So your leadership, not your adjusting, is often what determines whether the practice plateaus or grows. Dr. Graham, I had a coaching call with him the other day, and he said, he's grown incredibly. I give him credit because he's put the systems into place and he's basically doubled his practice since he's been coaching, which is great. He wants to continue to grow. And he said, should I be focusing on learning more adjusting skills or should I be focused more on communicating? And so my answer to him was, you can have the best adjuster of anybody you know, But if they can't communicate chiropractic, they have a substandard practice. They have a mediocre practice. They're not seeing a lot of people. They're not making a lot of money. They're not having a huge impact. But you take somebody who's a mediocre or poor adjuster, but if they have a great command to articulate chiropractic and share the vision and inspire people, they'll be busting out the seams. So I think your ability to communicate chiropractic is really, really important. So your ability to be a leader in your practice is absolutely vital. So a weekly staff meeting isn't simply another meeting, it's where your culture is created. And that I really truly believe that your whole culture in your office starts from the staff meeting. And we really owned that and we never ever missed a staff meeting. And it was part of our bonus structure with our team that they had to attend staff meetings. If they missed a staff meeting for any reason, they're not eligible for their monthly bonus. That's how important it was. So it's where expectations become habits. It's where problems were solved before patients ever noticed them. It's where great teams become exceptional teams. And if your weekly meetings are inconsistent or disorganized or simply become a list of complaints, if it's a complaint session, you're missing one of the most powerful growth tools available. So this is really, really important. So the whole purpose of a weekly team meeting. So your meetings should really accomplish 5 things every week. Okay. So number one, create alignment amongst the team. So everybody should leave knowing what matters most this week, what the office priorities are, what the team's goals are, and where the practice is headed. We need a direction. So if we're on a ship, we need a compass, we need a direction. So alignment removes any confusion. It keeps the team on the same page. Number two, we improve communication during that meeting. So we get rid of any misunderstandings because it's the small misunderstandings that become the large problems when nobody talks about them. So the weekly team meetings eliminate any assumptions, any gossip that's going on, any frustration, any surprises. We really focus on our systems during the team meetings, and we're constantly trying to improve our systems. And this is really important as you grow. As the office dynamics change, we have to adapt and we have to build better systems. So it was the team meeting that we talked about. How can we adapt and make things easier for the patients, make things easier for the team, make things easier for the doctor? So every week your office is learning something. Great practices improve one system every week, and average practices repeat the same mistakes and never grow. Or you get to a level, and what happens is you sabotage yourself because you haven't adapted and you go back down. And we've all noticed that. This is where we celebrate success. People need to know that they're making a difference. And this is one thing we really focused on with our team and recognizing all of the great things that happened over the last week. So recognition creates motivation. And number 5, we develop people. And that was one of our big things. And I said every single associate that came into our office, my goal was to help them become the doctor they needed to be to go and open and run their own practice and thrive, like be completely successful. I didn't have the mindset that I wanted to keep the associates there forever. I wanted them to develop their skills. Every team member, I tried to inspire them that they would literally want to go to chiropractic school. And a few of them did, which is fantastic. Or they would want to get up and do a doctor's report, or they would want to stand up at a dinner and give a testimonial, or they would want to go and do a screening by themselves to go and share the message of chiropractic. That was what my thinking was. I wanted to inspire them so that they could make a difference in other people's lives. So this is one of the things that most offices skip, and your meeting should make your team member better every single week, not just informed, but better. So the golden rule is never let your weekly meeting become a complaint session. It can't become a complaint session. So if your meetings revolve around problems, your culture becomes negative. But if your meetings revolve around solutions, your culture will become innovative. So always ask, what can we improve? How can we improve? Whatever that might be. So here's kind of an idea of a weekly meeting structure. And I would love, because I know some of you on this call are doing some meetings. So share things that you do in your meetings that you find are really beneficial that you want to repeat every single week. So number 1, I would always start with energy. And it was the same thing with a huddle. I would prepare for a huddle, go into a huddle with some preparation to inspire the team. And that's one thing I wanted to always do was inspire the team. So start with energy. Number 1, we always begin on time. And like I said at the beginning of this call, if you come to the meeting, if our meeting starts at 12 o'clock and you come to the meeting at 12 o'clock, you're late. If our huddle starts at 11:45 or 7:45 or whenever it starts and you show up at 7:45, you're late. So come with the intention of bringing energy. So you're energized, you're prepared, you're ready to go when the meeting starts. And that starts with leadership. So, doctors, number one, you have to be before being on time. And that's always. So, late starts will communicate that time doesn't matter and have everyone stand up if possible. We used to do this at the beginning. We would have like a group session, group sharing session, group gratitude session, whatever it was. Go around the room and ask each person, what's one win from last week? And you do this when everybody's standing. It brings a different energy to the meeting. So it could be a great patient success story. It could be a personal accomplishment. Maybe one of your children did something great. Maybe you had a personal win in your own life. Whatever it is, something relational, something emotional, something personal. It could be anything. It could be a team achievement, something you've learned in the last week. And this immediately changes the emotional tone of the meeting. It gets everybody prepared and open to receive and exchange during that meeting. So people perform better when they begin with gratitude and success. It's like, and if you watch a lot of motivational stuff or you listen to speakers, whether it be Tony Robbins or Joe Dispenza or whatever it is, many will talk about starting your day with gratitude because it sets the tone for the day. It opens up your mind to receive things through the day. So you don't go into the day fighting the day, you go into the day embracing the day. So for those of you who are doing that, fantastic. If you're not doing that, I would suggest trying it. But this is a fantastic way to start your day in the office or especially with your meeting because it helps establish the culture. So number two, review the numbers. For those of you who are not taking really detailed stats, start doing that. If you want to grow, if you want to make your office very efficient, even if you don't want to grow, but you want to make your office easier and more efficient, you need to measure the stats. That's how you know what needs to improve. So what gets measured improves. So keep it really simple. So we always had a team member that was responsible. Her duty was to bring all of the stats to every huddle, every staff meeting, every training. She always had that clipboard, and it was manual clipboard. Every page was a month. There was a spreadsheet that she created, and we would know exactly the position of every single patient that started, and it would be 12 months previous. She would have all 12 months at least on that clipboard. So we would know all the new patients, patient visits, collections, which I'm going to say to you, for those that don't share collections with your team, they know, like they know how much money so don't try to fool yourself in thinking you're not going to share the details with your team. Don't be afraid to share collections with your team. And I always said collections were a great benchmark of how we were improving. Plus, their bonuses were completely dependent on collections. So they were invested in the collections of the office. So we shared that with them. We talked about reappointments, referral numbers. We talked about online responses like our Facebook, Instagram ads, conversion percentage. We wanted to know how many of those new patients were actually on signed active care plans. So it means they either committed to a one-time payment or a monthly payment. So what type of percentage? And we always like to see that between 75 and 80% at least. We looked at Google reviews. We looked at any outstanding care plans, like people that were delinquent in their care, so that maybe they needed a phone call or whatever the case is. But she had all those stats ready to discuss. And we always talked about patient retention, not just patient retention, but how we were trying to create better patient retention. So we would always ask, what do these numbers tell us? Not necessarily who's responsible or what's going wrong, but we just basically use the numbers as a guideline to say, are we going in the right direction, or do we need to pivot? Do we need to focus certain attention in different areas? Part three, celebrate team wins. So again, recognition is one of the most overlooked leadership skills. So celebrate excellent patient reviews, team members going above expectations, great communication, any type of office improvements, positive patient comments. It was a great time for the front desk team to share with the rest of the team. Somebody came out from their adjustment the other day and they talked about this, or they talked about how their life was changing, or they talked about how their symptoms were gone, or they dropped empty medication bottles in the bin that we had in the front, that big Rubbermaid container at the front desk. And the other part of the team wouldn't know that because they weren't involved in that conversation. So it's a great way to share some of the positive stuff, some of the lives that we were changing as a whole. And so definitely that was a big part of the team meeting. Part four, we had a training moment. And so again, we had our separate trainings, but if you're not doing a separate training, so in other words, like we had a 1 hour staff meeting every week, and we had a 30-minute training every single week. So there were two separate meetings plus our huddles before every single shift. So we would talk about during the staff meeting different things that we needed to focus on. And we'd say, okay, if for some reason our new patient tour was not as effective as it should be, we'd tweak something during the staff meeting, and then we would train on it during the training. If it was an issue that happened on day one or day two with a patient, we would talk about it during the staff meeting, but we would train on it during the training. If you're not doing a separate training, this is a good time to throw in 5, 10, 15 minutes of some level of training. So every week you want to teach one skill. So it could be something as simple as just the way that patients are greeted. Like, for instance, if patients are not greeted with proper eye contact. So in other words, especially a new patient walks into the room, and if you've ever been a fly on the wall and watched how your front desk person interacts with a new patient. So a new patient walks into the room, and think about the mindset of a new patient. They're a little uncertain. This is a big step for them. Maybe it took a lot for them to actually get into the office, like to make the appointment and actually get into the office. There's a little bit of fear, uncertainty. So how's that front desk person reacting to that new patient? Are they on the phone? Do they ignore the front patient, or do they make eye contact or no eye contact? Do they just say hello? Do they get up and shake their hand? Do they actually walk from behind the desk out to them, shake their hand, or maybe even give them a hug? And that's what our team ended up doing. As we talked about that, they were very warm people and did that every single time. And it really, again, created an energy. It created a culture. Using names, like, is your front desk person greeting somebody with their name intentionally? Like I said, making eye contact, listening, and creating that connection. These are all really important things, and you can train on these things during your staff meeting or during your training. Could be communication. How is the phone being answered? And again, docs, do you have a system that your phone is being answered a certain way? Like, are your front desk people picking up the phone and saying something intentional that you're comfortable with, that is setting a tone, setting a message for who you want to be recognized as in your office? Are they scheduling with confidence? Are they engaging in financial conversations in the way that you want them to? So again, these are things you can talk about during your staff meeting or perhaps train on. Can your team explain the care plans properly? And I'm going to guarantee, because many of you can't explain the care plans that you have articulately enough yourself. And so this is a huge training moment, is being able to explain those care plans and what's entailed in those care plans, what's included in them, why they're important to follow through with, why everything that's included in the care plan is important for their recovery and for their correction, and how to handle objections. So it's just a training for active listening and how to manage those conversations. So that's another good thing to add into those staff meetings. Clinical consistency. So we can talk about during the staff meeting, office flow. Like, what happens when the office is busy? Is the flow happening smoothly, or is it chaos? And in many times, especially in growth stages, we found that we were in chaos. So we had to adapt. We decided we were going to move the check-in station away from the front desk to actually have people come in with their key fob, where if you guys have Atlas, you have the key fob check-in. And we actually moved it away from the front desk so we would remove the congestion from the front desk. So that person coming in is swiping in somewhere else, where people that needed to be at the front desk, it freed up some of the space and the time. So we talk about office flow. We talk about room turnover during the staff meetings. Like, if our bottleneck was our exam or re-exam room or our X-ray room, how is that all being affected? Can we modify that? Can we do the exam in two separate places so we free up that space for those few extra minutes? We talked about documentation, and this is where in one of our staff meetings we just found that it was Dr. Kim was getting behind, because her practice was very, very condensed. She had two part days a week, and she was adjusting about 400 people in those part days. And she just found that it was getting behind. Like, it was like there were 20, 30 people waiting for her. And sometimes she would get 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes behind. So what we did is we said, okay, how can we remove this bottleneck? Well, her main bottleneck was communicating with the patient, and then being able to type it in afterwards. And that slowed her down. So we actually had another staff member come in for those extra hours to follow her around and do all the typing. So she didn't have to do any typing. The only thing she would do is manage the patients, have conversation with the patients, adjust the patients, and the team member would be doing all the typing. And then Dr. Kim would go to the next table. And that really freed her up. It was, that allowed her to see 40, 50 patients an hour and really try to stay on time. So re-exam procedures, follow-up systems, these can all be talked about during that team meeting.
The big thing I'll tell you guys about the meeting, this meeting, break it down into buckets. Break it down to the buckets of your office, know what the expectations are. You need to own it first before you can pass it to a team member. Because if you don't understand how it works, you can't expect the team member to do it. They can track stuff, they can gather data. You need to show them how to then report the numbers. And so it's just simple stuff like new patients, conversion of those new patients, total visits, retention, resign, and then money. And then you think about what are the metrics that help us get to those pieces. So it might be different for everybody, but you probably need two or three in those different buckets to understand if you're on track or you're trending in the wrong direction. But if you can do that, it becomes real easy to gather the info, becomes real easy to then have someone in your team own a bucket or own a department.
And thank you for sharing that. And see that this is the big thing is that when your team is trained and when your team is together and you've created that culture, the business flows regardless of you being there or not, at least to some degree. Like there definitely has to be leadership, but if there was no training, if there was no culture that Justine had created, you know what would happen if she's out for 5 weeks? It'd be like there'd be no practice when she came back. So this is really important to make sure you have in place. One of the things that we focused on in our meeting was where are we going? Like obviously we'd create the culture, we try to inspire the team, we'd recognize all the wins, but okay, then where are we going? And the big thing was we all knew the mission, we all knew the vision, we had it written on the wall. We wanted to make sure that we were getting to our community and saving and changing lives. So it was okay, what do we need to talk about as far as referrals go? Is there any warm referrals that we just need to close and get in the office? Have patients brought up other people that need to get in here? What do we need to do on that? It was like community outreach stuff that we had. Are we doing lunch and learns? Are we doing any type of dinners coming up? Our regular monthly nutrition talk. We would talk about all of the marketing stuff that we had on the go, online reviews, workshops, special events that were coming up. So everybody knew what was happening. There was no confusion. There was no scratching their head. Oh, I don't know when the next dinner is. I don't know when the next nutrition workshop is. Everybody knew. And that all just came from leadership. So I took responsibility of that. I would always come to the meeting with making sure I knew exactly what was happening in the office, where we were going, what we were trying to accomplish, and bringing that inspiration. So you just have to have ownership of that. Professionalism, conflict resolution, positive attitude, growth mindset. You never ever skip that part of it. We always made the training interactive. So if you're doing training at your staff meeting, it has to be interactive. It can't be one way. So here's one way to implement a very simple training protocol. And if it happens once at your staff meeting, fantastic. If it happens with a separate training, even better. There has to be some role play. I mean, you can't just have it one way. So if you haven't got your scripts and procedures in a document or in a playbook for your office that everybody has, that would be the first thing. So everybody brings their script to the training or to the meeting, so they know here not only their scripts during a day one, during a day two, during a doctor's report, during a re-examination, whatever it is, they know the procedures, they know what their role is, they know what they're supposed to say and how they're supposed to say it, but they also know everybody else's part. I just saw a documentary and it was talking about Anthony Hopkins, the actor, and it was an actor that had worked with him in the past and saying he was so intimidating. He commanded the respect of everybody on the set of every movie that he was in because not only did he know his lines forward and backward, he knew everybody else's lines. So he knew the entire script. He knew exactly what was happening all the time, who was supposed to say what. And that's how well prepared he was. So I would say, think about that for your team. If everybody on your team knows exactly what's supposed to happen and who's supposed to say what, who's supposed to do what the procedure are, what the system is for every day one, for every day two, if your team knows exactly what you're saying during the doctor's report and then what has to happen afterwards, you can't help but have a successful office. Like it's just magically going to happen. But that comes down to role playing and making sure that everybody understands the whole picture. So, what happens when a patient arrives late? What happens when a patient wants to cancel? What happens when a patient says care is too expensive? Or patients don't understand recommendations? How do we deal with these things? Patient leaves a negative review. What's the system? What's the procedure? Practice responses together, and the role playing tends to build confidence. So whether it's day one scripting, whether it's day two, what happens on a day two? Does the front desk person get up and greet that person again from in front of the desk with concern, with compassion, saying, "Hey, Dr. Colin told me that he's really concerned. So glad that you're here today, but he's really concerned about what he found during your exam yesterday." We role play all that stuff, and we watched people do it together, so we were all confident that any of our team members could step in and do that in real time with the patients. Part five. So, constantly improving our systems, and we're always asking the question, what's one thing that made our patients' experience harder this week, and how can we fix it? So, whether it was, like I said earlier, the check in process, the new patient tour, any type of phone scripting, scheduling, payment collection, paperwork, communication, equipment, supplies, we would write every single bottleneck down, talk about it, and figure out a solution. So, again, it was just constant improvement of those systems. We may need to assign ownership to one person, but we would always have staff meeting minutes and we would post them on the board. Everyone had to initial them. And we would start the next meeting with those staff meeting minutes. Okay, what did we talk about last meeting? What was the outcome? What was the next step? And did it get accomplished? And what do we need to do to make sure it happens? And we'd follow up on that the next week.
If I could just jump in there for 1 second, what we do in our office for this, it works really well because it assigns a person to it. There's a timeline, team can always check it. We go through our different departments and then we have what's called an issues list. So each department is 3 to 5 minutes. That's all it should take to report it, you're either on or off track. And if you're off track, that goes on to issues list. And then you, at the end of the meeting, solve the issue. If you solve it, it's done. If it's not, if there's an actionable step, like what Colin's talking about, someone owns it. So someone's initials go on it and the due date. So when you get back to the meeting the next week, go through your stats again, you go to issues list and everything that was due, it's either we put it in green, it's been accomplished, or if it's not, what's the delay, what's the hang up, what has to be solved for this to be now a remedied item. It's an easy tracking list, and team can go back and reference it during the week.
We would end the meeting with our priorities. So we just had total clarity. And so we just wanted to make sure that everybody understood what the direction is, what the next steps were, what the main priorities were for that meeting, and what's going to happen before the next week. So we reviewed the top priorities. We always went over our calendar of events. Like, so everybody, there was no question that we wanted to make sure everybody knew what was coming up. Any type of marketing activities. So it was our dinner, our screening, our makeover, outside talks, lunch and learns, whatever it was, everybody knew. What was our next community outreach? Like, who were we going to focus on to maybe set up another lunch and learn? Where were we going to reach out to our next talk? What special event were we going to start setting up? Even if it was, say, 3 to 6 months out, because we wanted to make sure our calendar was set up at least 6 months out, if not longer. And so we wanted to make sure that we were discussing all of those potential changes coming up. Any type of schedule changes? Is somebody going to be away on vacation in the next few weeks? So we were all aware. Do we have coverage? Any type of new equipment? Is one of the tables cracking? Does it need recovering? So we would make sure somebody's in charge of that. Patient appreciation events. And here's the other thing that we talked about too. This was a regular part of the conversation: is which of the patients needed special recognition. So maybe they had a family member that was getting married. Maybe they'd had a death in the family. Maybe one of the patients had been there for a year, 2 years, 5 years, special, so they were going to receive a special award, maybe an invitation to one of our dinners, asking for a testimonial. So all of these things we talked about at the meeting, so everybody was on the same page, and we would know who would be the first person to communicate with that patient. So we just knew exactly what success looked like preparing for the next week. Um, so again, meeting rules: start on time, end on time. We try to respect everyone's schedule. Nobody brought phones to the meeting, so we wanted full attention. So everybody left their phone either at the front desk or somewhere else where they were not going to be a distraction. Everybody participated. There was no flies on the wall. And it's funny thing is that sometimes the quietest people will often have the best ideas, but they're just too shy to share them. So we made sure that everybody knew that they could participate without being judged and a lot of times we would have some of the best conversations from some of the quietest people. So we invited every voice. We attacked the problems, not the people. Praise in public, correct in private. So the meeting was not the time to correct people or chastise people, criticize people. Leave with action items. So every discussion ends with, okay, who, what, and by when. And so you on the line here, all you guys on the line, the doctors are the leaders of the meeting. So your role really in the meeting is not necessarily to dominate. Your role is to facilitate and bring the best out of your team. This is how you create the culture. So learn how to ask really good questions, listen more, coach them, encourage them, empower them, recognize them, praise them. And the best leaders speak less, ask great questions, but focus on developing others and building the ownership. So instead of saying, I need you to, try asking, what do you think would improve this? So put the onus on the team, get their opinions on what needs to improve. And instead of giving every answer, develop the problem solvers. And if you develop a team of problem solvers, you create a great culture. Ownership creates engagement. Okay. Patient-centered meetings, and again, this is just kind of building on what we've talked about already, but always connect every topic back to one question. How does this improve the patient's experience? We just wanted to create a 5-star office. I often would say to the team is that, and I'll digress a little bit and say one thing we did regularly was at least twice a year, we would bring them to a seminar. And every seminar we went to, they're staying in a 5-star hotel. Well, part of the training would be to what is your experience, not just from the seminar, but in the hotel. Because many of our staff members don't have the opportunity to go stay at the Hyatt or go stay at, the Shingle Creek or whatever it is and have that experience. So we would ask them what was their experience in the hotel, and they would say how they're walking down the hall, and every one of the maids that were there cleaning the rooms would stop what they were doing. They would stand as you would walk by. They would smile and they would say, hello, ma'am, or hello, sir. So everybody was treated with this level of respect and just professionalism. And they thought that was really mind blowing to them that the people were there cleaning the rooms would actually stop and basically give honor as you walk down the hall past them. They would stop completely what they were doing and they would smile and say hello to you. And we thought, how can we bring that into the office? How can we let every single patient feel that way when they come into the office? So everything matters just because every interaction influences trust, compliance, retention, referrals, and healing. Patients remember how they were treated long after they forget what was said. A couple things that I would just say to end on this, just a few thoughts. One thing to create a really efficient office and an efficiency in the fact that I want you guys to reach whatever volume, whatever level of collections that it is you want to reach, not to the point where you feel chaotic, but to the point where you feel that this is your purpose. You're fulfilling your purpose. You feel satisfied in the fact that you know where your business is going and you've created a great team that helps sustain and run your business. And it really comes down to the bigger vision. What is your vision for what it is you're accomplishing? And we have such a big vision in chiropractic. And I really want to make sure that you guys are taking every opportunity to share that vision with your team and inspire them. And we've talked before about getting your mission statement, getting it up on the wall. Don't overthink it. Get something up on the wall that is inspiring, that people look at, and it gives them a goosebump. It gives them some level of emotional connection to that. It doesn't have to be too wordy. It can be anything, but that's the thing that helps your team become inspired because that helps create your culture. So get the mission statement done if it's not done already. Get it up on the wall. You can change it. I mean, don't overthink it to the point where you procrastinate about it because you just can't wordsmith it enough into existence. Get something up on the wall that creates that emotional connection of who you are and what you're trying to deliver. Paint the vision for your team. Share patient testimonials. And if you don't have the system to get patient testimonials, figure out that system. We've talked about having that camera up in your office 24/7. Train on how you're going to ask patients for testimonials. We actually just in the last few years of practice, put a bell up on the wall because I remember my sister, when she was going through her medical cancer treatment, she would do their however many rounds of chemo. And after the last round of chemo, patients would go up and they'd ring the bell like, "Hey, I won." So we decided that we were putting a bell up in our office to basically say, hey, if you had a great adjustment, if something's going really well with your chiropractic care, as you're walking out, you ring the bell. In fact, it was so loud, my staff actually came over and they would tape the dinger of the bell so it would click instead of ring. But it was a great way to create that culture. So, like anything that you can do to create more vision, create that culture, inspire the team, go over the finances, make sure everybody knows what the care plans stand for, what the options were financially, so your team could be very articulate. They would know exactly what you're delivering. Talk about the practice growth. Talk about professional development. I would say if you guys haven't taken your team to a seminar, commit to at least once a year. I mean, we've had seminars locally in Toronto. I know many of you do bring your team members to those. We're going to Calgary in November. Commit to that. I mean, bring your team. Celebrate team birthdays. My wife was great at this. She would always, bring like some sort of a gift card, whether it was a Starbucks gift card or a Home Depot gift card, $25 gift card to recognize birthdays in a birthday card for our team. So we never ever forgot that. Anniversaries, special events for your team, recognize them. Celebrate work anniversaries, milestones, and grow your culture. So build a team that shows up inspired, communicates exceptionally, serves patients consistently, takes ownership, supports one another, solves problems, and continually grows. So for those of you who are either not doing team meetings or they're inconsistent or perhaps they get canceled or they're not regular weekly meetings that are written in stone or have solid yellow lines around them, here's the challenge. Set it up for the next year. Figure out a time that everybody can get to. Inspire your team, challenge your team to get to every single meeting. So 52 meetings over the next year, 52 opportunities to become better, one skill learned each week, one system improved every week, one patient experience enhanced every week, one teammate encouraged each week. And imagine what your practice would look like 1 year from today. Not because you adjusted more patients, but because you intentionally developed better people. So, and again, leadership is not something you do occasionally. Leadership is something you step into and you do consistently. So your weekly meetings is one of the greatest opportunities for leadership that you'll ever have. So use it wisely. Your team will grow, your patients will notice, and your practice will thrive.